This is my wine cellar. I built this wine cellar when I built my house back in 1981. We had to dig the house into the hillside because we live on a steep hillside. So we had this nice retaining wall that keeps it moist and cool in here all the time. We've been gathering wines in here, a case or two of every vintage of most of the wines that I make ever since I was first making wine. And we've got wines that go back to 1981 in here, and some earlier things that I had collected as well. And people often ask, what is available in your wine cellar, or what do you have? And like I said, it's a limited amount, maybe a couple cases of some wines just a case. Some of them we've already drunk up. I'm trying to make a little bit more room in here because, as you see, we're pretty jammed up and can hardly walk around in here. So we're trying to clear out some of this backlog of wine. It's more than I can drink all by myself. And so we're going to pick out a few wines and taste through them and make them available for customers that might want to taste some older vintages, things that haven't been available for a few years. I've got some 2011 Estate Meritage. Should be drinking really awesome right now. Certainly could sit in the bottle for another 10 or longer if you wanted to, but I'll bet it's tasting really good and it'll be a fun wine to taste. What else have we got here? Here's a 2012 Estate Meritage, another really awesome wine, one of my favorite wines to drink, quite honestly. So let's taste that along with the 11 and see how they compare. Oh, here's something goes way back, 2002 Cabernet. That's a really interesting wine, and I'd be interested to try how it's developing. I already got 2002. What else? How about a 2013 Estate Broadway or Meritage wine?
So we are going to taste through some of these wines my dad pulled out of the cellar. First one here we got is a 2014 Cabernet Sauvignon.
Okay.
This was a good vintage.
Okay, let's find out what it's like.
You can see by the color, still has really nice color. Be just a little hint of browning around the edges, but
very perfumey.
Yeah.
Vanilla.
For having just opened the bottle.
Blackberries, cherries.
Showing really nice.
It's awesome. Well, it's got intense blackberries, cherries. You know, the French would say cassis, but nobody knows what that is. But that's kind of like blackberries and cherries. It just really jumps out at you. It's really it's just got a ton of
but it's got that kind of nice, old world, a little bit of that old world kind of leathery tobacco character,
perfumey, vanilla-y. It's just got a lot of different things going on, but in the mouth it just really comes together in this kind of delicious way that makes you just want to keep drinking it. Really, I mean, it's so soft.
It's not
and
overly...
so filled with flavor and different textures. This is really a great bottle of wine.
Yeah. This
sign me up
with some tri-tip or something. Ooh. Dad, you ready for the next one? Yeah. Let's see, what do we have here? 2011 Estate Meritage.
Kind of expansive aromas, that kind of suggesting that there's Merlot in here. It's got a kind of a fatness to the aroma. It's got the cherries, it's got the berries, it's got a lot of vanilla. It's really different than the
only 14.2 alcohol, so low alcohol, but really big mouthfeel to it.
Well, I mean, it's definitely showing it's got development. It has a really different aroma than the Cab did. And like I said, I think a lot of it's the Merlot. A lot of it also is the fact that it's been in the bottle longer. It's developing bottle bouquet, these kind of unique nuances that wines get after being in the bottle without any oxygen for several years.
What would you describe as bottle bouquet?
You know, it's a kind of a hard thing to define. My professor at Davis said to him, bottled bouquet was the smell of sheets that have been left out to dry on the clothesline. It's kind of a subtle, unusual kind of an aroma. And I think it is that kind of expansive thing that comes out of it. To me, I just think of of the fat of the wine or something is coming out in a really nice way.
You sometimes get like a nutty character.
And plummy. There's a plummy quality to this wine, and I think that it may be coming from the Merlot with it's still got the berry fruit from the cab.
You get like an olive oil kind of character.
That's maybe what I'm thinking of. Is kind of a certain kind of herbaceous aroma that kind of pops out of it. Mm-hmm. Not a bad kind of herbaceous aroma, but something that
really
just
unique and
kind
interesting.
of blossoms.
This O2 cab. I'm excited to try this. It's been a long time since I've tried it.
Okay, so 18 years old. Pretty nice. Kind of typical Bordeaux kind of a nose, huh?
Kind of interesting.
But it's kind of spicy. Not really earthy like it was in the past. It's more of the fruit.
But it also has some kind of menthol-y.
Yeah.
Really, big aromatics. I mean, you can smell it from here.
It's got blackberries, along with all of these very complex, kind of perfumey, and maybe you can say earthy, but not in a real. I mean, it's really not your barnyard kind of sense. It's much more complex than that. If you like Lynch-Bage, you like this wine.
If you like old world style, Bordeaux, you definitely, this is up your alley. That's
bright
got
color.
Some nice youth to it.
Yeah, it still looks youthful. 2012. Blackberries, it's cherries, it's plummy, it's all those.
It's not really showing age.
No, it's still young.
Still very young. I think. Well, it's got, it does have a little bit of that blackberry, but to me, it's a little bit more raspberries.
Yeah, raspberries and cherries.
Some cherries.
Kind of really bright, dark fruits.
A little bit redder fruit. Nice tannin to it.
Yeah, it does. It's really yummy.
Great tannin. If you like a little bit of tannin in your Bordeaux's and your Cabernets, this is definitely a wine you should check out. It's not overbearing. I mean, it's you could drink it on its own, but I think with food it'll be fantastic.
But complex with the
more it opens up, I think the better it gets.
Licorice and cherries and raspberries, blackberries.
Yeah.
And this is the first year that we called our Meritage Broadway. Huh?
Yes, sir. Yeah, this is
first Broadway.
Very first Broadway. Why don't you tell them why we decided to call it Broadway?
Well, I guess one of the reasons is that the Broadwings, the hawks, and like the red-tailed hawks and the eagles, they're the commanders of the sky. They're the Sky King, and in fact, this one has a picture that my son took of my red-tailed hawk, who was definitely the top dog in the sky. To me, this wine of the set, this wine's unique because it definitely shows that it's Cabernet dominant, and yet at the same time, you're also aware that there's Merlot back in there as well. And Merlot is just kind of recessive. It gives you a little bit of that honeyed, rich fat that Merlot brings, but the Cabernet has definitely got the strong varietal blackberries, these kinds of notes.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's got a unique character to it.
It's very fruit based. In the mouth, I mean, it just screams fruit in the mouth. It's a young wine still.
I describe that.
11 is so it's a 9-year-old wine.
It's hard
It
to
doesn't seem old
describe.
at all.
It's hard to wine to describe. To be honest, it's kind of one of those things that I really think you just need to try it.
It's really delicious. I think it really comes together well. Your note kind of reminds me of tasting French Burgundies with somebody that was very knowledgeable about them. And I said, well, the problem I have here with wine number 2 is that I can't really describe it. The flavors just all come together in one thing that is kind of hard to describe. And my winemaker friend said, well, that's the mark of a really great Burgundy is when you really can't take it apart. It's all comes together. And I think that is definitely
that's kind of what I get from this.
Wine.
It's just good. It's
but you
just
can
really
say
good.
it has blackberries, or you can say it has cherries.
You can say that,
yeah,
but it kind of has a unique character all on its own.
Yeah. Actually, I might taste some of these wines again because I think they've changed a lot. 2006. Personally, I really love the Merlot that comes off of this vineyard. When I originally planted it, it was almost all Merlot. And Merlot is just kind of the big kind of brawny brother of Cabernet. And it's not so scrawny and wimpy. It's just big and rich and strong. And anyway, beautiful color. Look at this. Hardly any brick, hardly any age showing to it. Of course, it's only 14 years old. Only 14 years old, so it's still youthful. Still smells youthful. Got tons of fruit in it. Cherries. What do you think, Austin?
I love it. I think it's a fantastic bottle of wine.
Really fruity in the mouth. Cherries, berries, plums. I mean, it's kind of blackberries in the mouth.
Interesting, but yeah, that's what's fun about aged wines is that you can keep coming back and picking up new aromatics as the wine opens up,
And even as I keep tasting, and I keep tasting more things because the wine is continuing to open. And that's one of the things that you see with older wine. Sometimes people like to take an older wine and they say, well, I'm going to open it early and let it just breathe. But what you miss out on is watching all the transitions as the wine starts to pick up a little bit of oxygen from the glass and it starts to change, and it changes a lot. When I would taste with my tasting group old wines, we'd start out with certain descriptors, but by the end of 15 or 20 minutes of tasting, we'd have a whole nother set, and it's just a wine that is evolving in the glass, changing before your eyes.